This story is really amazing, and it feels kind of like a turning point in U.S. politics in some ways, at least culturally speaking. So, we live in a new political reality, and listen, I don't like to generalize, but the boomers really haven't caught up, and many in Generation X haven't caught up. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm a millennial. I haven't even fully caught up. You got Gen Z is it really is they're their own people, and they've developed their own culture, and we're starting to see now the emergence of that into mainstream American society in a way where the old guard simply wouldn't understand. I saw a great tweet about the thing that you're about to see, where it said, imagine trying to explain to Nancy Pelosi what was going on with this story, like what this all means. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Among Us Twitch stream peaked at over 435,000 viewers. A lot of you guys probably know the world of streaming, but for those of you who don't, that is a ridiculous number. That's a preposterous number. That's like literally, I think, top 3 all-time Twitch stream. I mean, to get 435,000 views on anything is amazing, even if it's a video you put up and then you look a year later and it's 435,000 views. 435,000 viewers of a live stream? That's out of this world. So what happened is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted yesterday about maybe streaming, playing a game, Among Us, and a bunch of, well-known Twitch streamers kind of immediately jumped on it and were tweeting at her. She was looking for people to play with, and a bunch of people were like, hey, I'll do it with you. And these are well-known Twitch streamers in their own right. And, the rest basically is history. So she instantly became a Twitch partner. On top of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing it, Ilhan Omar jumped in as well. This was huge on Twitter. People were talking about it nonstop. Hassan Piker was actually instrumental in setting this up, and he played as well. And, I'm friends with Haas, and I think that's pretty cool. I'm going to come back to him in a little bit because there's an unfortunate angle to the story, which I think was actually incredibly predictable. But it came up. So a lot of big streamers joined them. Like I said, one of the biggest Twitch streams in Twitch history. So what she was doing was, on top of playing the game, she was pushing to get out the vote. Now listen, you guys know my whole thing on it. There's not a single person in this country who's more conflicted about this election than me. I get it. I get the lesser evil vote. I'm not going to begrudge you the lesser evil vote. I'm not mad at you at all. Everybody has their own reasons, and they've thought it through as to why they're going to do what they're doing. But to the extent that I'm cool with people voting Biden, I also am just incredibly turned off by the relentless pushing of him as if he's better than he is and as if he's worthy of this all hands on deck approach. And so anyway, she was pushing to get out the vote. Not necessarily what I would be doing, but, she was doing what she was doing, and it is what it is. By the way, this is something that is more likely to work than a lot of the old school approaches. But you guys know my other take, which is I hate when politicians lean into cultural stuff, because as a general rule, they lean into cultural stuff to avoid the policy stuff. Now, in the case of AOC, it's a little bit different, namely because in the stream, she was talking to H Bomber Guy, and he's a leftist streamer as well on the platform, very well known, and they were talking about universal healthcare. And I think he lives in the UK, and he was saying, yeah, when I get sick, I can go to the doctor, and I get help, and then I leave, and I didn't pay a penny. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was like, wow. So in other words, there's 435,000 young Americans mostly watching this, and they're getting educated on single-payer healthcare. And that is, without a doubt, the massive upside of doing something like this. Like, I'd rather have AOC streaming, not necessarily to get out the vote for a war criminal and a mass incarcerator, but streaming and educating people on stuff like Medicare for All, I think is absolutely wonderful. So anyway, credit where it's due, and that part of the conversation was absolutely awesome. Now, let's go back to Hassan Piker now. So I knew the second I saw Hassan Piker reach out to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Twitter saying, hey, like, I'll do it with you, the first thing I thought was, if this thing blows up, they're going to smear Hassan. Why? Because, and this is the most important point, establishment media, corporate media, legacy media, they don't get it. They're liberal cultural elites. They're not young, they're not hip, they're not cool, they're not with it, they're not leftists. Hassan Piker is too edgy, too much of an outsider, and too much of a leftist to ever be accepted by the liberal elites and, mainstream media publications. So, true to form, this thing blew up, like I said, 435,000 viewers, insane for a live stream, and here come the smears. So the Washington Post wrote the following. Most of the streamers involved in the event are not known for political content, barring Harry H. Bomber Guy Brewis. Sorry, Harry, if I pronounced that incorrectly. A leftist YouTuber who hosted Ocasio-Cortez on a stream in 2019, and Piker, who started his career with the Young Turks. Piker's Twitch account was temporarily suspended last year after his comments on stream that America deserved 9/11 and that a brave mujahideen was responsible for military veteran and Congressman Dan Crenshaw's losing his eye. Piker later apologized. Ocasio-Cortez ended with a serious appeal to hundreds of thousands of mostly young viewers. Please again, make sure you register to vote. Make your plan to vote. The point here is, I knew this was going to happen. Anytime a left-wing, independent commentator is brought up, insta-smear. They did this to Cenk Uygur when Cenk Uygur was running for Congress. I believe it was the New York Times. They wrote a piece, and in the piece, they said, Cenk Uygur interviewed David Duke and said, of course he's not a white supremacist. Then you go watch the clip, and David Duke says to Cenk, I'm not a white supremacist. And Cenk goes, of course. In other words, being sarcastic, as if to be like, of course you are a white supremacist. They smeared him on purpose. This is what happens. If you're outside of what they view as the acceptable spectrum of debate, the Overton window, they will be incredibly vicious towards you, and they will smear you relentlessly. And now Hassan Piker is getting a taste of that. All the things Hassan Piker has said, all the stuff he's done. This guy was a big advocate for Bernie Sanders in the primary. He's a huge advocate for equality and justice. And him and I have our disagreements, but who doesn't? But anyway, to sum up everything he's done, to flippantly put, he's like pro 9/11. By the way, when he said the thing about the brave mujahideen fighter, he was joking. Obviously, he doesn't want somebody to, what'd he say? Fuck Dan Crenshaw's eye socket? Obviously, that's a joke, number one. Number two, if you go watch the comments on 9/11, his actual point was, we funded the jihadists who then did 9/11. And we keep arming and funding jihadists who do terror attacks. Look at all the money and weapons we give to Saudi Arabia. And his point is, hey, this is kind of the chickens coming home to roost because we made this happen. And on top of that, you also kill civilians and create more jihadists with bombing the Middle East relentlessly. That was his point. Now, did he go too far when he said we deserved it? Yes, but people are being way too literal-minded and they're actively trying to be obtuse. Is the argument really that Hassan Piker's pro-Al-Qaeda, pro-Osama bin Laden, like actually in favor of terrorist attacks against the United States of America? Honestly, you would have to be context dense to believe that. You would have to be you have to actively try to misinterpret in order to come to that conclusion. But that's what they're running with. And by the way, he also apologized because he said, what I said was wrong if you take it literally. Here's the thing I meant. By the way, all the clips cut off right before he says that second thing. Like, oh, what I mean is we fund Saudi Arabia. We fund jihadists. And then they turn their weapons on us. This is what's been happening. Dan Crenshaw supported the weapons deals with Saudi Arabia. This was his point. His point was, are you crazy? You're bringing about this situation as you pretend to be like Mr. Tough Guy and I'm tough on terror. Well, stop arming Saudi Arabian jihadists. Oh my God. But anyway, this was his point. And now, anytime he's ever mentioned in polite society ever again, this is how he's going to be talked about. Because this is what they do if you're not in the club. They will find the worst thing you've ever said and then actively take that and misinterpret it on purpose and portray you as a terrorist lover. By the way, if Haas really wanted to get, in the gutter with them, he could easily flip this right back on them and say, I think you guys are being bigoted. I think you're racist against me. Why? I'm a young brown streamer and you're trying to portray me as an Al-Qaeda lover? That's pretty bigoted. It's almost like you're saying anybody from a Muslim family is an Al-Qaeda lover. He could flip it back on them and play that dirty game if he wanted to, but he's honest, so he's probably not going to do that. But this is what happens. Agree or disagree with Haas, he's got 1,000 takes that him and I would probably argue on, and we have argued on him. Irrelevant. They're smearing him. And by the way, the main point is, why would they do this? Why? To try to scare Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar and other politicians from getting too comfy with independent-minded leftist outsiders. That's why. Because I've seen this script before. I've seen this script before a million times. If you're an independent-minded leftist outsider, they divide and conquer. They're going to try to get her to denounce him. Because they want to make sure she doesn't break ranks. She doesn't get too far left, too independent-minded. That, hey, know your place. You better keep calling Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear. That's what you got to do. Don't step out of line. Don't get too comfortable with these outsider, independent-minded leftists. They might push you further left. We can't have that. So smear and divide and conquer, and that's what we're seeing. And, this gets to the bigger point of I've been screaming at these politicians who mean well, who are on the left for the longest time. Acknowledge the fact that there's a civil war inside the Democratic Party and fight for your side. Instead, they like to pretend like there's not a civil war within the Democratic Party and go along to get along with the establishment who will always stab them in the back. Always. So anyway, there's going to be a lot more of this. The more politicians like AOC and Ilhan Omar get comfortable, culturally and otherwise, with young, independent-minded leftists, the more the knives of the establishment come out. It's dishonest, and they're trying to steer the discourse and make sure that they stay relevant, and anybody who's younger than them, more of an outsider than them, and has a platform, they do view them as their competition as well. And so they're never going to give you a fair shake. But anyway, this is the world that we're in now. No matter how much they try to keep us down, us being new media, whether it's on Twitch or whether it's on YouTube, you get the sense, there's always some evidence, some hope of there's this whole other world out there that they're unfamiliar with. And we need to get politically involved and engaged and active, and not necessarily in the traditional ways. If we can get this much energy and enthusiasm for something like this, in theory, we should definitely be able to get a general strike. We should definitely be able to fight on specific issues and push politicians left and hold them accountable. And when you see these numbers, you understand that there is hope for the future. We just got to get organized in a better way and have clear goals and have a strategy. But like I said, this is a new world, and I guarantee you in DC right now, they look at these numbers and they're like, what? What? What?